Okay, so I apologize for everyone that we're going to have to watch some of what Stephen Weil did here today, but he is fighting back, pushing back. Um, it's quite something, I'll tell you that. Give me 1 second here as we just get set. All right, so basically, FIDF is scrambling, trying to contain the fallout. They are trying anything and everything they can to try to blame essentially everybody else. But let's just be really clear here. FIDF, the report that came out that was in Ynet, that was commissioned by FIDF, by donors, like national board members. And the only people who have seen it are the reporter from Ynet and national board members. So all of this fighting about what's going on, it really is coming from what they put out themselves. So as much as people like myself and others have had issues with what FIDF is doing, this is coming from them. They themselves commissioned this report, and the report was leaked to Ynet. So we should just start there when we're talking about some of these problems. I think that's like the most important thing just to remember is that these are coming from what they are saying. Their employees, people testified to the committee about all sorts of crazy things, but their employees, these aren't other people. These are their employees that testified to that. So let's just remember that when they try to do these crazy fake news. But yeah, at least it's entertaining. So here I'm going to analyze some of Steve Weil's talk today, his briefing. The guy's clearly very angry, but let's go around and have a look under the hood of what he was saying, because it is quite revealing. So here we go.
Good afternoon to those of you who are on the East Coast. Okay. Good morning to those on the Central Time Zone, the West Coast, as well as a good evening to those following from Israel, from Europe, and parts abroad. Today, our speaker is a fascinating woman, a female Druze member of Knesset. Her name is Radir Kamal Mareh. And we were planning on sharing this a couple of weeks ago. That's actually when we recorded it. But things took a turn in terms of the war. And because of that, we're going to be sharing this interview today. And the insights that we'll get into the Druze community in Israel, the insights we'll get into this fascinating woman and her journey is really a component of Israel that warms all of our hearts. Before we get into that interview, though, I'd like to address a couple of issues. And the first issue I'd like to address is there have been a number of articles in different news outlets, etc., that have gone around saying some incredibly disparaging things about FIDF.
Let's just first say that the report that was featured in Ynet, the 18-page report that was leaked by someone who had access to the report in FIDF, okay, that report is what Rabbi Weil is saying is disparaging about FIDF. So the report has findings that were leaked, and then other people are speaking up because there are issues in the organization, and that is disparaging.
And if I could address a few of the attacks against us. One is that we raised all this money and that we're sitting holding the money. That is an attack that, if I could contextualize, is very wrong for the following reason.
Okay, so in an email that they just sent out maybe an hour ago, they actually said that there's they've only sent 125 million to date, and they had raised, I believe the number was something like 278 million just in 2023. So again, this is just very interesting that everything is fake. They're under attack. They are the victim. There's nothing to see here because everyone, including their own board members who are saying anything, everything is false. The only thing that's correct is what Rabbi Weil is saying, apparently.
We've committed over about $252 million for the war effort, above and beyond the education, the welfare, the well-being that we commit to each and every year. But specific needs towards the war for the benefit of the soldiers, we've committed about $252 million. We've raised in cash and pledges around $216 million. So we're not all the way there, we're quite a ways there. We've transferred not all of the 216 million. In fact, the specific numbers we're going to be sharing with all of our donor base. So the question is why? Why are we sitting on money? Why are we sitting on funds if it was supposed to be for the war effort?
That was raised as part of an emergency fund. So the war effort emergency fund, and everybody who is in touch with anybody in Israel knows that there are tons of needs, whether that's widows, orphans, and I'm not talking about a summer camp, although people always ask, oh, what does FIDF do efficiently? I can't even vouch for the efficiency of the summer camp in which they bring orphans of war over or siblings of war. But I'll tell you that that is in the right direction. That's a very beautiful, nice thing to do. The question is, what is being done on a weekly basis? And that's a question that can be asked without some sort of ulterior motive. You're just asking a question. And that always upsets people. So yeah, there are real issues. There are widows with many children at home that need financial assistance. There are injured soldiers. According to FIDF's own 990 from 2023, they helped something like 2,000 wounded soldiers with $800,000, which would be divided into about $400 per soldier. That's basically nothing. So those are real questions. So why are short-term, very serious needs not taken in the same way as other things? That's just a question, but of course they never really want to answer that. They just get upset.
And the answer is the following. Many of the commitments, and again, we didn't tell the Army, as you know, we take the requests, the needs, the most critical urgent needs that either the Army, the IDF has, or the ministry.
The most critical urgent needs. Again, with this language, Rabbi Weil, I know you're going to watch this. As you and I spoke on a call, and I'm not going to go into it because the terms of this call over a year ago were to be confidential. I'll say that. But many people have communicated to FIDF, just stop saying critical urgent needs. Just stop with that. Just deal with what you do. But whether or not you have a building that's built in 5 to 6 years is not the critical urgent need of today. And when you have people that have legitimate needs, just be honest with what you're doing. So right there, it's just they go back to the same spin, the same misleading nature with the critical and urgent needs. And notice he didn't say humanitarian in that statement. He just said critical urgent needs.
Ministry of Defense has for its soldiers. And we fund those needs. And in the case of PTSD, the commitment is a multi-year commitment. I'll give you 2 examples. Early detection. At this point, over 300,000 soldiers have gone through early detection. When I use the word 300,000, if this person was an infantry soldier in a tank corps, they may have gone through it 3 times, 4 times. Each time they've come out of Gaza for respite, before going home, they go to a facility in Ashkelon, a facility that we fund, where a group, they take off their uniforms, they get into civilian clothing, and they go through a series of exercises. They, their commanders, and they're observed by therapists.
That's not true for every single person, but again, there's so many fine details into this manipulation, so let's just let it run.
By psychologists, over 300,000 that have gone through this. And by the way, there's sometimes what will happen to multiple units. There's not enough space in Ashkelon. Then we fund them to be taken to a hotel or to a conference center. Wherever the Army decides, they get the therapy. Over 3,000, I repeat, over 3,000 soldiers have been pulled out of their battalions and put into serious therapy. Serious therapy, because early detection is essential and it's crucial when it comes to preventing anxiety, depression, subacute and acute PTSD. Where do they get taken to? We're funding a building, which is the temporary facility. It's the WeWorks building in Tel Aviv Yafo. We've taken over half that building, retrofitted it, where the therapy is done. I'm proud to tell you, very excited to tell you, that the majority of those, in many cases, have gone through months of therapy, in some cases, weeks of therapy. The majority of them have been able to return to their units. In some cases, not necessarily to be able to go on the front line again. They'll have to be used for logistics, supplies, other things. But most have been able to return after months of therapy. Others, unfortunately not, are still in very, very intensive therapy. But that we've made a commitment over 4 years, 24, 25, 26, 27, so that when the war slows down and the war, please God, will stop, not only will they be getting this early detection experience for 48 hours, but each unit each year will go for a week of assessment, of analysis, of the ability to download, etc. Because that is crucial in preventing long-term trauma in these soldiers. But that's a 4-year commitment of $23.5 million. We're committed for $6.5 million this year, $6.5 next year, and $6.5 in 27. Cost us, in terms of funding it, it was over $4 million in 24. Another example, the Ministry of Defense chose Dr. Mickey Pollack and his team at Sheba Hospital because they're the best. They're rated the top when it comes to PTSD. There are so many soldiers that are going to need therapy. Mickey Pollack and Dr. Pollack and his team in Sheba can't do it all themselves. So what they were commissioned by the Ministry of Defense, which we are funding, is to train and manage literally an army of therapists, psychologists who never before had dealt with PTSD, but are being trained in PTSD and are working out of a number of facilities. One that we funded in Nahariya, one in Haifa, one in Tel Aviv, one in Jerusalem, one in Beersheba, not to mention parts of Sheba Hospital. They've taken those wards, put them in other buildings, other facilities, and these buildings are being used for PTSD therapy.
Okay, nothing he says can be taken at face value. It all has to be investigated, and it's important. I'll give him the time here to see, to continue to talk. But the question is, is this actually true? How are soldiers on the ground feeling about it? Are they actually getting the help? These are questions that have to be investigated and interrogated because FIDF doesn't have the credibility that Stephen Weil can just say this and it's assumed true.
Therapy. What's the point? This is a multi-year commitment because it's not just about training these therapists. It's about managing them, mentoring them, and making sure that soldiers get that intense therapy with a therapist that they have a relationship with over a long period of time. And hopefully, in the case of most of them, they will not have to be in therapy for years. But in the case of some of them, we're looking at a significant number of years. And since there were a shortage of therapists, this was what the MOD prescribed, and this is what we're funding. And again, it's a long-term commitment. Why am I giving these two examples? I'm giving these two examples to say that many of the commitments that the MOD and IDF asked us to make on behalf of the soldiers, for the welfare of the soldiers, and this is true of the bereaved families, the widows, the orphans, the bereaved siblings, was a multi-year commitment. One example, right now this summer as we speak, there are 500, a little bit more than 500, either orphans or bereaved siblings who are here in America participating in Jewish summer camps or having their own travel camp that we're funding, that we're administering, that we're running, advisors of these young men and young women. They themselves are bereaved. They're either orphans or bereaved sibling of war. The goal of FIDF having taken out the country, creating these migrant, these cohorts of young men and young women in the course of the next years who will have this experience, will be able to create relationships and bonds for life with people who are just like them.
All right. This is the clown show of Stephen Weil. Nobody thinks it's a bad thing to help orphans of war or widows. Everybody wants to help those people. I will slow down in case they don't understand this over in the middle of Manhattan. It's now, I don't even know how long, 8 minutes into this, 10 minutes into this video, 12 minutes into this video. Nothing that Rabbi Weil has said here is of value. Nobody is disputing any of these things that he's saying, except for the fact that the ins and outs of the PTSD and the effectiveness of the soldiers, that's something that has to be independently audited. But this is the spin cycle of FIDF. They just sit there and they give you all this crazy stuff without addressing the actual issues that people have raised, including people in their own organization. So you have board members saying something has to be done. This is going to be horrible unless we address this. And then they sit there and they just put you in the spin cycle. It's definitely a kosher word salad. I'll put that way.
Who've walked in their shoes, who understand, who are the only ones that understand what they're going through. And they're the only ones they really can truly be open to. This is a 6-year commitment. So what I wanted to share with you is we don't hold money. We don't hoard money.
FIDF 100% holds money. I don't really know what, I mean, protected versus unprotected. You can get into the whole thing, but again, something like this, I don't know why he needs to say that, but okay.
If there's a multi-year commitment, the Army does not take the money. The Ministry of Defense does not take the funds until they're ready to spend them. Yes, every week we are transferring funds, but we transfer funds only when they're willing to accept them. I think that's very crucial to know in terms of how we work. And I would like everyone to please remember 2 things. One is that we made a commitment as an organization that funds dedicated to the emergency campaign, which after about 6 months became the war campaign, if it was dedicated to the emergency campaign or the war campaign, no overhead is taken.
So as I reported on Friday, there was a settlement in the Human Rights Court of the city of New York. Remains a question if funds were taken from that to pay for the settlement. I don't know, but it's just worth asking. The settlement was in February of 2024, and the emergency campaign from October 7th, he said 6 months. That would put you in March. So I'm not saying that is where it came from. I'm just saying nobody knows where it came from. So again, these are reasonable questions to have about a nonprofit. A lot of spin.
100 cents of every dollar goes to these needs. And the second thing, to please understand that not only do we get the top rating from Charity Navigator, in fact, the top rating, I think the last 13 years, maybe the top 1.5% of all American charities that have gotten that rating each and every year over 13 years. But something that's even much more challenging is we get the top rating from the foundations. And in particular, the foundations, they refer to us as platinum when it comes to transparency.
Hey, Rabbi, What did the Jerusalem Post refer to you as? We know that the answer was it was in a special content section, which is paid. Yet, as of right now, July 13th, 2025, that fake award is still on your homepage. So there are a lot of smoke and mirrors here. And again, this is not really answering any of the questions that people, even on your own board, have raised.
All there on our website. And we're going to be sharing that with all of our donors to understand how transparent, how honest, and how we operate.
You literally spent over a year gaslighting soldiers who were begging people for help. I'm not asking you to help with equipment, but people asked you to stop gaslighting and you didn't listen. So the honesty issue is because you didn't tell the reality in an accurate way about what was going on the ground. So there's just so much condescension and gaslighting going on here. It's really crazy.
A next attack that was
But also attack. This is also attack. They're not getting attacked. Okay. People on the board are calling it out. But I love that they say attack. It really is unbelievable. So they can say whatever they want. They can put misleading advertising out there, which I'm not sure if it's a misleading, if it's an FTC violation. But this is now they are under attack because someone says something about it. Attack. Just keep that in mind. Okay. So let's just, and before we even get to the next thing there, let's start with what Rabbi Weil and the team, what they had Lara Krinsky say here. If I go over.
Everyone, giving to FIDF, just to underscore, is the fastest way to directly help Israel's soldiers. 100% of the funds donated to our emergency campaign are going to soldiers. FIDF is taking no overhead. Like Nadav just said, you wear everyone.
Let's go back to this sentence right here.
Giving to FIDF, just to underscore, is the fastest way to directly help Israel's soldiers.
Okay, so people are calling them out for not being transparent or direct about exactly what's going on. They're on tape saying that their fastest and most direct way to help. And then, of course, you point this out and you are attacking them. I mean, it's an insult to the intelligence.
Rivaled against us was flip-flops. Don't give to FIDF because FIDF spends their money on flip-flops, not on.
By the way, that was never actually the attack. The attack, if you're going to call it that, is that you are claiming you're giving to the most critical needs, the most critical, urgent needs. People are begging for helmets, begging for vests, begging for ceramic plates. Soldiers begging for gas money because they don't have reimbursements as they're helping move logistics to the front lines. And you are taking emergency campaign funds and buying flip-flops. We've spoken to multiple whistleblowers that have said that you actually wanted to downplay things like that. So why were you downplaying it if it's so important? All we're asking for is honesty. So let's hear his defense of the flip-flops.
Serious issues. The reason that is an insidious attack.
Insidious attack. It's so insidious to insist that if people are giving to critical needs, that a soldier would have a helmet from this century before they received a pair of flip-flops. That is an insidious attack. It's just so insidious.
And an incredibly manipulative attack.
Manipulative. So soldiers have to beg for basic equipment. FIDF with Nadav Padan tells people not to help because everything's fine. and we have that on video all over. And then Rabbi Weil says that it's manipulative to point out that they spent emergency campaign funds buying flip-flops and Mentos.
Is because the $23.5 million that's dedicated to the early detection, when they come to...
Okay. So now what he does is you need the flip-flops to help cure PTSD. So if you are objecting to flip-flops, $172,000 worth of flip-flops, you are dismissing the PTSD evaluation. And you're manipulative if you call them out for buying flip-flops. You are the manipulative one. I mean, this is some 1984 stuff here.
Ashkelon, when they come to another facility, if Ashkelon is booked with a different battalion, they take off their clothing, off their boots. Their clothing is laundered for them, and they're given civilian clothing. They're not going home first. They're coming from Gaza, from the battlefield, to Ashkelon or to the facility. And they're given clothing. It's the least expensive piece of what is being spent. The money.
I don't think that Rabbi Weil wants to go into what these soldiers are given or what they're not given. That will not bode well for FIDF in terms of what they're actually receiving. So again, the level of gaslighting here is quite high.
Money is on the therapy. The money is to maintain and run the facility. The money is for everything else. But yes, so they're given a flip-flop and a polo shirt and shorts or pants and socks. That's what they're given.
Nobody is objecting to the fact that soldiers would get a change of clothes. Nobody is objecting to that. What we're objecting to is the manipulative marketing campaigns, the way in which urgent actual needs were dismissed by Major General Reserve Nadav Padan and by Stephen Weil, and the level of condescension. Because what FIDF would go out and say is they're the only ones authorized to help the IDF, and they know the real needs. Everybody else are basically whiny college students. So you have wants and needs, and all of the wants are basically spoiled kids, and the needs are what FIDF says. And then the needs turn out to be flip-flops. I want to go ask 10,000 Israeli soldiers. Would you rather have a perfect ceramic plate, vest, and helmet? Or would you rather have soap, shampoo, and a candy basket if you make it out of Gaza alive when you get to Ashkelon? If you get to Ashkelon. I mean, this is just so stupid. I don't even know. I shouldn't even dignify this with a response, the level of gaslighting. And what does it say about this organization that this is the way in which the CEO is responding to it? I mean, it is an insult to the collective intelligence of the Israeli soldiers and to the donors that care so much about Israel that this man is spinning like this instead of just saying, hey, the Ministry of Defense was not so clear, or they messed up, or whatever it might be, but we don't handle equipment. So if you want to handle equipment, do it through XYZ, but don't worry, that's not what we do. Why do they have to insist on saying critical, urgent, front lines? Just come off it, Rabbi. I mean, it's just ridiculous. It's actually insulting everyone's intelligence.
And they're given, a shampoo to take a shower. And they're given a bed so they can sleep in the bed that night or 2 nights that they're there.
Oh, and if you don't favor their expenditures, then you're against soldiers sleeping in a bed. Yeah, that's right. You're against a bed because of if you don't think that FIDF should use critical needs emergency funds to buy 50,000 pairs of women's underwear and toothpicks and floss. You don't want soldiers to sleep in a bed that night. Do you really think we're that stupid, Rabbi Weil?
Okay. But to say that that's where we're spending our money on flip-flops, that's...
And mouthwash and sanitizer and cookies. Yeah, you are spending your money there, and you have to answer why you were gaslighting soldiers about not having proper equipment while then spending it on these things. Yes, that is a real question you have to answer instead of spinning everyone like they're idiots.
That's a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of the 23.5 million that we've dedicated for the early detection of PTSD.
Right. Again, you don't care about mental health if you challenge FIDF's false advertising and the way in which Rabbi Weil misled people. You don't care about soldiers with PTSD. You're a bad person. This is what you're supposed to believe.
It's incredibly manipulative to do that.
Says the man who just said that you don't care about soldiers with PTSD unless you support FIDF lying to the public and then using money on flip-flops and candy. But it's manipulative to call out that they spent money on flip-flops. Write that down.
And to publicize that. And number 3.
Oh, publicize that? FIDF promoted it on their social media channels that they were giving money to frontline support and flip-flops. So they publicized it. So this is how pathetic the organization functions under Stephen Weil's leadership. They publish something on social media or they say something on their own broadcast. People call it out, and then you are manipulative for quoting what they say. This is like amateur hour.
And we'll talk more. I'll share in further briefings with Major General Padan. We'll share with you.
By the way, these guys are on the opposite side of their internal politics, so it seems. So Nadav Padan basically, at my sources indicate, wants Steve out. Steve is trying to sideline Nadav. So here they're kind of unifying against the attacks against their great organization, but secretly they're basically going against each other. Maybe not even so secretly. One of multiple employees told me that basically Steve would come in and say something, and then Nadav would come in and say the opposite. So it's like cats and dogs. But here they're uniting against the people that are actually reading what they say on social media. Again, a heinous crime, manipulative, insidious. Oh my God, this is just horrible. How dare someone actually read what we wrote on social media? Unbelievable.
Thank you. But the integrity of some of our lay leaders and some of our staff is being attacked.
By your own people. Your own people are saying this. I don't care how many takes you take on your whatever you're doing here, Rabbi. Your own staff members dislike Maury. Board members dislike Maury. E-Jewish Philanthropy reported it was 5-5 on whether Maury should be removed. So half of your executive committee doesn't like Maury. But these are horrible attacks. By the way, who do you think leaked the report to Ynet? Do you think that someone who really loves your leadership, Rabbi Weil, would leak that to Ynet? If someone really, really wanted you to still be the CEO, do you think that report would get to Ynet? I think it's probably someone in Nadav's camp, someone who really doesn't like you and doesn't like Maury and wants Nadav to be in charge. So you're like fighting this fake enemy on the outside when the truth is everybody on the inside is mad at the other person. Or so it seems that way.
In a terribly, terribly dishonest, manipulative.
So the board members are dishonest and manipulative, according to Rabbi Weil, at least some of them, because those are the ones who put the story in Ynet. So half of the executive committee that voted for Maury to go out, allegedly dishonest, manipulative.
In a vicious way. To impugn anyone that they took money from the organization or they used organization money for themselves. Okay. Not only has been.
That was the result of that was literally the findings of your own report. So the FIDF report finds this, according to Ynet, and that's what's leaked to Ynet. And now, this is who Rabbi Weil is striking against here.
Been disproven, clearly. But it's just a terrible manipulation.
A terrible manipulation. So the people that want Nadav Padan to be the CEO or to be in charge are guilty of a terrible manipulation, according to Rabbi Weil. What does Nadav know about that? I don't know, but is Nadav involved? Does Nadav support you, Rabbi Weil? Do you support Nadav? These are real questions, because these are really strong words you're bringing against your own coworkers. Your coworkers don't love your management style, apparently, because that's what's in the report. It's just very fascinating here that you're now uniting, and then of course, you know, it's just interesting dynamics, and the manipulation is truly in this kind of presentation in which you're now fighting a boogeyman that's actually your own organization.
To impugn Major General Padan of not caring of his soldiers.
I'm not sure. I don't know of anybody who's done that. I personally have leveled criticism of Nadav Padan lying, but I didn't say he didn't care about his soldiers.
Not caring and getting soldiers killed.
I didn't say that he did that. He pled guilty in a case. That's literally a public record. You can go and look. That is a public record that Nadav Padan pled guilty. Okay. So it's public record. Just look it up.
Is a terribly, terribly vicious attack.
The level of lies out of FIDF is quite striking. So, you know, I didn't want to do this, but let's just roll the tape here on Nadav Padan and Stephen Weil lying about the state of equipment in the front, on the front lines. Here we go with tape 1.
The other thing is I'm hearing and dealing with a lot of noise of people, good people, that trying to send support to Israel, that hears needs from the soldier on the ground. Those are authentic voices, I know. Some of you have a lone soldier in Israel that call them and tell them of needs on in Israel, the north or the south. I can tell you that right now there is mess with lots of requests and people to try to help, do their best, but instead of helping, they are disturbing, they are stealing the time.
You are disturbing if you want your child to have a safe helmet or a safe vest. You are the problem. Not the fact that the Ministry of Defense and the logistics department have major issues, which we can deal with later. But no, Nadav Padan says you the caring father, you the caring brother, Bubby, Zadie, you're the problem. Not the fact that the Ministry of Defense and the IDF messed up like that. No, you're the problem for wanting your kid to have safe equipment. The chutzpah. And it's just insane gaslighting. And these people don't say sorry.
Any last thoughts, Major General Padan?
So I just
This one's just more boring stuff. This is
Most of
more.
the soldier are not, or almost 100% of the soldier have the equipment that the IDF plan them to have it.
I will just say about planning to have it, right? So if you are a medic or if you are in logistics, yes, the IDF didn't plan for you to have better equipment. This was changed about halfway through the war, but that's a big problem because if you are a driver, you deserve to have safe equipment because you still are going into a combat zone. I don't think we want to go into the statistics of how many logistics people and medics unfortunately lost their lives. So yeah, that's a problem that you have exactly what they plan to have in this case. So many of the soldiers were faced with that kind of reality, and this is gaslighting of the highest order.
Is gap here and gap there. The IDF know it and close it. For example, just
Not true. Just fundamentally untrue.
to give you a flavor, there is a lot of videos and a lot of requests about helmets. At the storages of the IDF, there is over 10,000 new tactical helmets.
We worked a long time to try to confirm this. No evidence that 10,000 helmets from Canada came in like that were sitting on the shelves with no use. The logistics department was offended when we asked them about it.
Came from Canada, by the way. And the IDF are not realistic that easy. Not because every soldier wants a tactical helmet means that they'll get tactical helmet. Some of the requests is like I would say like a college son that asks for a new car. He have a car, he will be more than happy to get a new one, but doesn't mean that it needed.
You spoiled brat running into Gaza trying to save people's lives. Who do you think you are wanting new equipment that actually works? How dare you be so entitled? This is the kind of stuff they're saying, spitting on the face of the soldiers and calling out these kinds of comments is somehow manipulative and nasty. No, I think it's manipulative and nasty to talk about these things if you have no intention of even dealing with it. If there was a problem, FIDF wouldn't help. So what Weil and Padan should have done is just been quiet and not spoken about that specific issue if you can't help about it. But instead, they spread misinformation, dangerous misinformation.
Okay. Reputed by the very, very families who lost a soldier, who Major General Padan each and every year has a continuing relationship with. To impugn our chairman more.
Again, this is a scarecrow. Nobody argued that. Nobody made that argument. So Rabbi Weil is more interested in this case of spinning and misleading people than actually addressing actual concerns that were raised.
Levovitz, a man of impeccable integrity.
Nadav Padan, to the best of my knowledge, my sources tell me, despises Maury Lvovic, as do almost 100% of the staff. Impeccable integrity, according to Rabbi Weil. So what you're seeing here is you're basically going to have a staff that's going to refuse to work for a chairman who they don't like. The board has determined that this guy was doing all sorts of weird stuff, apparently. And Stephen Weil is going to the mat for this guy. Okay.
A man of incredible honesty. A man who's only supported the soldiers, funded the soldiers, of any impropriety. It's not only false, it's horrific.
So Rabbi Weil has just called half of the executive committee essentially horrific, and whoever authored the report horrific, and those that are upset or have questions about Maury's leadership, they are horrific. But don't fall for Rabbi Weil's trap about looking outside of the organization. Look inside the organization. The Ynet report was based on an 18-page internal report commissioned by FIDF and leaked by members of FIDF.
It's vicious. We looked as an organization because we felt that from a point that was chosen is not Amazon's money, but they chose this professional thought, and we looked at options that for our needs and for what we as an organization need, they would provide the best service as well as the best pricing. And we did the same thing in Israel. Our chairman had other businesses. And we went to him when we were looking at different options. He shared with us that Forrest didn't tell, had no personal gain whatsoever. But he felt that there was a travel agency, Ortra, that had, on the one hand, impeccable integrity, incredibly honest people, and as well, they would give pricing line item, itemized like a menu. We have multiple missions that we take to Israel. Some of them have many bells and whistles. Some of them are just no frills, and some of them are anything in between. And based upon what the needs of a particular mission would be, to get a bid where everything is itemized line by line would be in our best interest. Because if we wanted more of something, we wanted to cut out something, we could do that and we would know the consequences on the pricing. We happen to be very satisfied, both our team in Israel as well as our senior team in America. But in no way, shape, or form with either of these travel agencies was there anything whatsoever. Was there any gain or any financial kickback or anything to that effect? And I want to say this. We pride ourselves, and each and every year we go through an audit, which is a signed audit, very, very crucial. It's not the same thing as a regular audit. We go through an assessment and analysis by those that rate charities for foundations and by Charity Navigator. And both from a lay and a professional point of view, we pride ourselves on doing what we say, transferring the funds to what we claim we're raising money for, and the impact.
What you claim you're raising money for. Exactly. That doesn't answer the question of where it's actually going.
The incredible impact that we're having. And I don't want you to trust or rely on me. Speak to heads of the Ministry of Defense. Speak to the general staff, from the Chief of Staff, General Eyal Zamir, through the Human Resources.
So just go over to Israel and talk to the head of the IDF. That's what you should be doing to verify Stephen Weil's claims. That's definitely easily verifiable. Yep. I mean, I can't even believe we're wasting time on this, but it's important just to see how they spin things.
Branch that takes care of each and every soldier, and reach out to them. The difference that we, the FIDF family, are making. We're incredibly proud of that difference. And we're incredibly proud of the integrity of how we do what we do. And I thank you for listening to this. And speaking of an integrity, I want to speak to another man of great integrity, a man by the name of Dr. Daniel Polisar. And the reason that I'm speaking about this is that I was interviewed by one of the synagogue.
So I'm just going to say that I actually caught this interview, wrote about it, and I love Daniel Polisar. We've collaborated on a bunch of stuff, so it's just funny. So I will take the mantle as the bad guy. Dr. Daniel Polisar is the good guy. So keep that in mind here.
It supports us. Park East Synagogue by Rabbi Raya Cosgrove. And Raya Cosgrove asked the question, what about all the groups that are raising money for equipment for soldiers? And I responded. And some of the things that I said need to be qualified and need to be clarified.
Qualified and clarified. Notice no apology.
First and foremost, what we're incredibly proud of, and I have the chance to spend personal time meeting with the Surgeon General of the Israeli Army, that Israel has done something that's being observed by militaries across the globe. The last time Israel had a sustained war in 2006, the southern, about 15% of soldiers died of their wounds. The IDF has cut that to 6.5%. To 6.5%. And there are many reasons, and we've discussed why. Immediately in the field, giving red blood cells, giving plasma. The $41 million that we've...
Okay, so what he omits there is the fact that you also have better body armor and things have been improved since 2006. So some of these injuries are going to be less impactful versus, say, someone who fought in the Civil War or someone who fought in World War I. If you get wounded, it's a lot harder to save you because you've been hit in more critical spaces and you don't have the proper body armor. It's like saying car wreck statistics from 1970 before seatbelts versus 2025. But when we talk about manipulation, you have to look at Rabbi Weil discussing battlefield success rates.
Raised and transferred in terms of emergency medical equipment that the Army is incredibly grateful to us for. The extraction time, the golden hour, where they're averaging 53 minutes per extraction, where you get from the time the person is injured, the soldier's injured, till the time they get into serious medical care, into an operating room, it's in an hour. All of these factors, the world is observing, medicine, so to speak, medicine, saving lives. But there are a couple of things that need to be clarified.
Clarified, aka he said stuff that was completely untrue. And here's some spin on how it wasn't actually untrue, but it was generally in the right direction. So don't look at him. He did nothing wrong.
One is, I gave a statistic when it comes to night vision goggles. And I said that in the American Army, only 10% of a unit is night vision goggles in order that the others can have peripheral vision. That was true, but it's not true anymore. The data that I gave you is outdated.
Oh, so it's how far outdated, Rabbi?
And the reality is that today, assuming there's proper funding, etc., the American Army tries to have a much higher percentage of each battalion, each platoon, with night vision goggles, trained in night vision goggles. And there's two types of night vision goggles. There's both eyes, and that's something that Dr. Daniel does. A second issue is that discuss weapons with drones. Again, we were told by the head of the ground forces, we were told by the head of all of procurement, Shan division, and we were told by the logistics department that they have plenty of drones, they don't need drones. What I also shared when it came to that.
So how about, is it true or not, Rabbi? Like, this is every single time there's anything that has to do with, is it true or not? You said something, it just becomes, oh, this is what we were informed. Is there any responsibility at all that FIDF has to actually just tell the truth about the situation? That's a very serious question.
Was that these drones get shot down either electronically, otherwise, that there have been a couple of cases where they even shot Iron Dome missiles at drones, and that many, many people have been injured. That is only part of the story, and I have to clarify. That's true when a drone is bought on Amazon or that's bought from a more sophisticated company that's a civilian drone. It doesn't have the IDF cybersecurity. It's not the grid of the IDF. That's what happens because of the huge fear, number one, that they're broken into either by Hezbollah or Hamas. Number two is that they don't know that it's a friendly drone. They think it's an enemy drone, and they try to take it down. And with that, they very often take down Israeli army drones. But that's not true, what I said, of the drones that Dr. Poliser and his team provide.
So you lied?
Every one of those drones, they take out, so to speak, the civilian technology they put in the IDF cybersecurity. Every one of those drones is made to be fit within the IDF system. And those drones are not causing anyone to get injured. They're not causing anyone to get hurt. Those drones then become part of the system. So I have to clarify, and I want to thank Dr. Polisar and his team for what they're providing. Again, we are told one thing, they're told by others, and they're providing it, and they do it with the utmost integrity, sincerity, and sophistication. The third point that I want to comment on is the IDF has provided probably somewhere between 90 and 100,000 brand new helmets.
When? That's the thing. So when Spin Cycle Weil here goes on his spinning about what's going on, he's talking about, say, even 90 to 100,000 helmets. This has taken well over a year for things to come in. So while Nadav Padan and Stephen Weil were telling people they needed emergency campaign funds and spent it on flip-flops and other things, soldiers were waiting for proper helmets. Some of those POs, it took years to complete them. So saying that you order 90 to 100,000 helmets, it's not like you have an apple orchard and you go pick out helmets and you get them. It takes time. So again, this is a manipulation of the statistics.
To the soldiers. We're talking about soldiers here, which is the regular army. We're talking about reservists. Remember, we have an incredible amount of reservists right now, particularly right now on the Lebanese border, the Syrian border, in Judea and Samaria. And I made a comment that the people on the front line, okay, they have top helmets, etc. That's what we're being told by, again, the head of logistics.
Do you push back? Do you ask and actually point out that this is just clearly untrue? Or it's just you have to take notes, you're a stenographer when they come to a meeting and they say this, 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 this? Are you an advocate for soldiers? Or are you just a spin master when it comes to PR and misleading soldiers' families? These are legitimate questions.
Head of procurement, the Mashan department, etc. Dr. Polisar and his team, they speak to many, many commanders on the ground, and they're being told differently. In no way, shape.
They're not being told, they're being shown. There's a big difference. Real, authentic caring in this case is demanding to see evidence, demanding to see proof, and actually seeing results on the ground. What Rabbi Weil is doing here is just saying, well, they told me one thing, they tell him the other thing, so who knows what's actually true, and go with your best thing. No, why don't you just figure out what's actually true?
Reform would I impugn or even question Dr. Polisar and his team? These are people of incredible integrity, and they know facts, etc. So even though there's close to 100,000 brand new helmets, in the event that they feel or that they have a perception that a certain unit, could be reservist unit, could be whatever, feels helmets, they go and they procure incredibly safe helmets that are protected. I want to thank Dr. Polisar for reaching out. I want to thank him for his incredible integrity. I want to thank him for the good that he's doing and love that he's sharing with the soldiers. We are doing what the Army is asking of us, and they made it very clear that these are the most urgent, critical needs.
Tampons, flip-flops, women's underwear. Again, the spin cycle is out of control. So it's just frustrating seeing people dodge responsibility, ignore questions, gaslight people, and it has real consequences, because ultimately FIDF should not be about defending large egos or defending people that have narcissistic personality disorder or anything like that. I'm not saying that's what's going on, but people have made the argument. What FIDF should be about is the soldiers on the front lines, and also having the utmost integrity when it comes to being honest with donors about where the money's going, what's going on, what's actually needed, and how to most efficiently help soldiers. I think every common, decent person can agree with that. And it's very telling that such an organization can't even get out of its own way in dealing with these questions, which were raised internally by its own board members. So just a little bit of a brief response here. Got a little bit agitated at the end because there's only so much dishonesty I can listen to consistently now for an hour, but the soldiers deserve better than to be spun. And we are planning, we've been in touch with a number of very dedicated soldiers. We're going to have podcasts all week on what's going on. We have a whistleblower from FIDF coming on the podcast as well. A lot of emails being sent in, tons of comments. It's going to be very, very interesting because the truth is really starting to come out, and the soldiers really deserve it, and the donors deserve to be treated with honesty, respect, and integrity. So hopefully we can help continue to make that and push that effort forward to help the state of Israel, the Jewish people, and to make sure that we restore integrity to helping soldiers.